Hi, so I wanted to take some time out just to kind of keep you in check with the process of creating this Zentangle monogram. Okay, you're picking a word, I'm sorry, you're picking a letter, and you're finding a design in which you can put your Zentangles inside of this design. And there's also a border that you're going to be sort of considering. You're going to do something around the outside, but most of the focus is going to be inside the letter with the Zentangles and some colors. So that's one example. And I've showed you quite a few examples. Here's another one with the letter A. Here's one that was started. It's the letter J. It's not quite done. Still have to color it and such. But so you get the general idea. And the size of the paper, it's going to be an 8 by 8 inch square. So whatever letter that you decide to do, you want to make sure it fits inside that 8 by 8 square. So two ways that you can create a square on your paper. You don't want to work on this whole sheet. You want to set up the size. You want to set up a square. So of course you can just use a ruler, and you can go off of the one side. I'm just working on the ruler upside down, but you can mark it at 8 inches from the left side. Mark it twice, and then draw your line coming down. And then you can go from either the top or the bottom. I'll go from the bottom. Measure it 8 inches from the bottom, 8 inches from the bottom, just like that, and draw a line. So that's one way that you could certainly trace out a square, or make a square. Another way you can do it is hopefully you've been given these cards. This is a tag board, and you can just certainly just use that to trace your 8 by 8 square. So this should be done on a piece of 9 by 12 drawing paper, maybe from your sketchbook. It could even be a piece of copy paper. So this is where you're going to be practicing kind of laying out your design. So if you find a picture off the internet, a letter design, you can certainly use that, but you want to make sure that it's big. You might need to modify it, and it should be big enough to fit in that space. So I shouldn't really be seeing much tracing or anything like that. So if I found something off the internet that was a really cool sort of letter L, and so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of draw it out the way I saw it. So it was like this scripty kind of letter L, and I just want to make sure that it's kind of thick and fills up the space. And you want it to be thick. So that means like you want it to fill up the square, so it might mean that you might need to modify it, but also you want to make it thick, wide, bold, fat, whatever you want to call it. So again, this is my rough draft. I'm just doing a quick sketch. Okay, and as you get it laid out the way you want, you can go heavier and darker. You can really see these lines. After you're done with this, the next thing you're going to be doing is you are going to split up this space. I had asked you to master 4 Zentangles, so hopefully you mastered 4 Zentangles and you would like to incorporate them in the design. So we're going to be putting Zentangles inside this space. So you're going to be splitting it up into 4 spaces. So you can see here I have sort of an overlapping thing. So I ended up with a space right here I can use for a Zentangle. Then this could be another Zentangle. But what I can do is if I wanted to, I can split it. So maybe I can have this be one Zentangle here, this be another Zentangle here, there's one over here, and then maybe if I wanted to split it, you can go with a wavy line, or here I'm just kind of tapering that line like that. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Just leave it like that. Okay. So this is going to be for practice. This is going to be laying out your design. This is your rough draft of the letter. What you can do now, as you're continually working, is that you can go over this with a Sharpie marker. And then what you can do is you can erase the pencil line. Keep it kind of neat, keep it kind of clean enough, because then you're going to be coming up with some more decisions on this rough draft. Now on this rough draft, after you lay out your letter the way that you would like to have it on your final, and you have your rough draft laid out with spaces, splitting up your letter into spaces where you can put your Zentangles. What I would suggest to do at this point is to trace this out onto one of those 8x8 squares. Okay, so get one of those 8x8 pieces of tag board that I supplied for you, put it on top of here, go up to a window, or if you just happen to have a light box, you can go up to a light box and you're going to trace it out. Trace it out lightly in pencil. Okay, put it aside. Okay, put it aside, and now on your rough draft, this is where you're going to be practicing your Zentangles and also coming up with your color scheme. Okay, so to show you, here is a finished product, right? This was done on the cardstock, all done. Now to get to here, I also had a practice sheet. And the practice sheet was where I came up with my colors, and I came up with practicing where the Zentangles are going to be laid out, and practicing where, you know, even for the background, like what I want the background to look like. So here is my practice sheet, okay? So you can see here, looks very, very similar because this was my final. At some point, I traced out the final design onto here and I put it aside. Then I went ahead and practiced the Zentangles in the spaces. You can see that the Zentangle in here doesn't really look as good as my final one. You know, I was just kind of seeing where they were. I also didn't finish the Zentangle. Like you can see here, this wasn't a finished Zentangle, and here I finished it. So on this rough draft, you're going to lay out your Zentangles. Practice where they're going to be located, and you can do it all in pencil. You can go over it with a Sharpie pen to see how it looks. Okay? And I also started to think about what I wanted to do for a background. Like if you wanted to do, you could do a border, like a real thick border around the edge, behind the M. Some people like to just design the whole background and fill up the background with another Zentangle. You can do that. But here I just wanted to do some like ribbons kind of spinning around, and you can see that I practiced it on here and then I refined it on my final. So all the decisions are going to be made on your rough draft. After you trace it out, so on here, going back to this guy, after I trace it out and I erased, draw it over with Sharpie and erased it, it's now I'm going to start to go to my Zentangle sheet. I'm going to go to all my Zentangles that I practiced and that I refined and all the ones that I want to use. And I'm going to take the Zentangles that I did on this sheet and I'm going to start seeing how they look on this page here. Just in pencil, because if I change my mind, I can erase. Okay? It's at this point, if I wanted to even decide on like some little areas, little elements that I want to put for the background, you know, I might want to put something over here, like a flower or something like this. Over here, I might want to do a little corner piece, but do something in the background, okay? The one thing I'm going to mention, but I'm not going to demonstrate here, is colored pencil. So on the practice sheet, you're eventually going to be selecting colored pencil colors, And you're going to be practicing. And then in another class, in the very, next week, very near future, I'm going to be talking about creating gradations, dark to light, and figuring out ways that we can incorporate shading onto our final, okay? Picking our color scheme and shading and stuff like that, but that is another class. So to start, one more last time, get an 8x8 square, find a letter design, draw it out nice and thick so you can put Zentangles inside. Once you've kind of created it, go over with a Sharpie marker, grab your 8x8 inch tag board, trace it out good in pencil, put it aside, and then you're going to be working on your Zentangles. Okay, laying them out where you want them to be, practicing them, figuring out, making some decisions before you start applying them to your final. Okay, I hope this video helped, and I will see you in class.